Everything was so fast that we didn't have a chance. All of a sudden, a truck came and 2 SS men came out. At the age of 7.5, the odor was a hot day, the perspiration, I never forgot that. You had better behave the way they asked you to do it, otherwise you were a dead one. He suggested to my parents to camouflage the house and make believe that nobody was living there. He walks up straight towards me. I understood right away that I'm not supposed to know him. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him. She really saved my sanity at that point because she took such good care of me. She took me out in the forest. I was there for 3 days. If a soldier would come into a home and see Jewish kids, the whole family would be shocked. The world hasn't learned anything from the last war. I am not a hero, but nobody could force me to kill somebody. I know that for sure. I think that if the people don't start to realize that you have to be kinder than you are and look around and help each other, it would be a much better world.
Hello, I'm your host, Jake Bennin, and welcome back to the Humanizing Success podcast, where we look for the meaning of success as well as share people's different paths and stories as well as journeys on how they arrived to success. So today we have you guys are in for a real treat. We have the pleasure of speaking to Michelle Rodri. So Michelle's story is one of survival and perseverance in the face of tragedy as well as good times and bad. And it's hard to comprehend and imagine for me at this age and in this point with the comforts I have around me, the life that she's been through. She's a Holocaust survivor, an incredible mother, grandmother, and dear friend of mine and my family's. And just feel lucky to know her.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
I mean, I'm not even intimidated.
Good. You shouldn't be. Just a conversation between two people.
Yeah.
So the question I usually start out with most people on the podcast is what the podcast is about, which is what is your definition or meaning of success? What does that mean to you?
Well, success in my life, you mean? Or success in general? In general.
So it could be financially, it could be as a mother, it could be...
Well, I think that the success that I think is terrific is when a young person starts out in life and finds the right partner and then finds everything that he wants to do with her. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about a gentleman, of course,
Sure.
About a man. And the fact that I think it is an amazing thing that they can get together, two total strangers, and create a life. It's like magic.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of work, and because you are two different individuals. So I think that in my case, I was watching my son growing up, and can I go that?
You can go down wherever you want to go. Well, there's questions I want to ask, but also this is a free-flowing conversation. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was watching my son growing up. Well, I devoted my life to him because I love him so much, and I wanted to create a good home for him, which I think I did, and he should be. I helped him in his studies, but he was a very good student on his own. And then I am watching from step behind steps, like on a stage, my son's evolution in his life. And I must say that he is my greatest success.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, he is definitely, because of only the way, number one, the way he behaves in life and his mentality and what he expects of other people, because he gives also. But he knows what is right and what is wrong. And sometimes I wonder how he knows that. And I know why now, because he researches everything.
Yeah.
He's forever researching. When I call and I ask him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm just researching something. And he found the answer to it and he's happy. And I think that the type of person that he is, I'm very proud of him, because he is really what we call, I was going to say it in French, what we what we call in our language in Judaism is a mensch, which means he's a real nice human being.
Yeah. And I'm sure maybe he learned some things on his own, but I'm sure he got some things from you, and you can definitely tell where his lineage goes from. But I wanted to talk also about where your life started. I wanted to talk about how your childhood was leading up to the Holocaust, and even before, just how you grew up and what your family life was like.
Okay, well, I grew up in an Orthodox home.
Okay.
But it was not...
In France?
Yes, in Paris.
Okay.
And it was never, my father was very strict with the religion, but strict with a lot of kindness.
Yeah.
And made us understand what we needed to become. My brothers were Orthodox more than I was, because I was the baby.
Yeah.
I was spoiled. I was actually so spoiled.
Were you the youngest?
I was the baby.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there was a big difference between my oldest brother and I, 15 years.
Yeah.
So I had 3 brothers. Mm-hmm. I had the youngest brother's name was Maurice, and he unfortunately was picked up in Paris, and he died in Auschwitz at the age of 17, which there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him, because first of all, he was talking about nice people with good character. He did have that.
Yeah.
And total loss to lose him. It was terrible. My other 2 brothers were living at home, and when the war broke out and my brother was taken to Auschwitz, they decided to go into the French underground.
Gotcha.
And my oldest brother became a captain in the French underground.
What exactly was the French underground?
French underground was that they were the whole idea was to destroy mostly the trains that came through France.
Gotcha.
With the ammunitions. So
to sabotage Nazi.
They sabotaged it, yeah.
Operations. Gotcha.
Yeah, and my oldest brother was going to 1 year to med school, and when the war broke out, he had to quit. So he decided to go into the French underground. Took my second brother David, with him, but under another name, so that they wouldn't be identified as brothers.
Yeah.
And so at the age of 7.5, I was playing outside. Do you want to hear my story?
Yeah.
I was playing outside of our house. I was playing hopscotch with 2 of my friends who were not Jewish. I was the only Jewish child. Also, you have to understand that as soon as Hitler came in to France, we had to wear the Jewish star on all our clothing. So we were identified. No matter where we were walking in the street, everybody looked at you in a strange way, like we were animals or something. So I was playing hopscotch with my friends. And all of a sudden, a truck stopped at the corner of the street, and 2 SS men came out and looked at our clothing. And I was the only one with the Jewish stars, so they picked me up. They picked me up and they put me in they threw me into this truck. And a few minutes before that, like a half hour prior to that, I was having lunch with my parents in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And my whole life changed from the moment that they threw me in that truck. I was bewildered. I
How old
didn't
were you
understand.
again?
7.5.
Oh. And they didn't say anything when did they tell you anything about where they were going or what they were doing, or they just picked you up and
Just picked you up, threw you in the back of the truck, and in the truck was a very large one, and it was filled with people.
Yeah.
The odor was, it was a hot day, the perspiration, I never
Right.
forgot that, and the cleanliness was less than you would like, and it was very frightening because there were all these adults.
At
and
7 years old, you're alone in.
Alone, and all of a sudden your life changes.
Yeah.
But also, I must say that before the truck took off over and we drove away, I saw my mother from the balcony. My father pulled her back.
So they saw you be taken away.
They saw me, and then my father pulled my mother back and he did well, because had she opened up the balcony windows or whatever, they would have been killed, and
Right.
for no reason. So the truck drove to Grenoble, which is quite a few hours, I would say about 6-7 hours. We drove to a transition camp, which is a triage camp, actually. And from that camp, every morning, they came in and they took people to different concentration camps. Now, the camp where I was a triage camp where nobody got killed. I mean,
Okay.
unless you behaved, and
Sure.
now and then you heard some shotguns going off. But when they came in to take the people every day, those people were selected to go to different concentration camps, which were the death camps, actually.
Right.
And quickly you learn that the system that they have,
Sure.
they come in like this, they take the people in the front. So I always was hiding in the back.
I was going to say, how did you avoid being...
I was hiding in the back. I was laying down. I was found.
You were small.
Yeah, and you become smart very quick.
Sure.
For survival, you really become smart very quickly.
I mean, at 7 years old, all of a sudden you need to fend for yourself. It's amazing you learned pretty quick. And
You do, and the thing is that you're so frightened that many times I urinated on myself.
Sure.
When I saw them coming in, because the Germans never spoke; they barked. To me, it was like dogs were barking, because they wanted to terrify you. That was their whole idea, that they wanted to be superior to you, and you were nothing, and they were everything. And you had better behave the way they asked you to do it, otherwise you were a dead one.
yeah.
So they wanted to scare you very much. And they always had these dogs with them that made them bark, and you were scared.
Yeah.
Because a dog could, if they would let it go, it could kill you.
For sure.
So every day that was what was happening.
Did you understand exactly what you're 7 years old? Do you understand that these people I mean, it's hard to comprehend exactly what's happening when you're that young. Did you just understand I need to survive today? And that was...
Well, the thing that I think I understood a little bit more being in that triage camp is in the back of my mind, I remembered the conversations that we had at home, that my parents had, because I was a little kid that didn't talk to me about it.
Yeah.
But I heard my parents talk about the fact that you have to be extremely careful and not talk back if you are taken.
Right.
If you were taken.
So they
there
prepared
was
you a
always
little.
you were taking. And when my brothers would walk out of the house, my parents were shivering, wondering if the kids were coming back home. But when I was taken away, there was a system in France that whoever they picked up, they had to report to the police stations. And my father had a friend who happens to be the police chief of the area. He was playing ping pong with him. He was a Gentile man. He was a Christian man who was very, very, very understanding and was totally against the regime of Hitler and all this. And at that point, when he saw on the list of the kids, the people, the adults who were taking that day, he saw my name. When he saw my name, he came to my father and told him, "I'll do anything to help you."
Yeah.
And he knew in what camp I was, but he had no access to it.
Right.
So what he did do is he suggested to my parents to camouflage the house and make believe that nobody was living there and that my parents lived in the house the whole war.
The entire war.
The entire war, and he came and he brought them food on the black market and all this. But I mean, he was a real friend of my father, and so
Saved
consequently he knew where I was. So what I imagine, my father somehow contacted my brothers. And my oldest brother. Also, what I have to mention is my mother was sort of a linguist, and she insisted on teaching us several languages. One was German, and we spoke what is called Hochdeutsch, the literary German.
Sure.
So I understood everything the Germans were saying, which was a big thing for me because I could hide a little better, I knew what was going to happen before they came in. But to come back to this gentleman who was the chief of police, he contacted my oldest brother in the French underground and said, "Your sister was taken."
Yeah.
So I was in the triage camp for a little more than 3 months, which were like 3 years.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And also, one big, something that stayed in my mind as a child is I was very French.
Okay.
I was very French. That was my country and don't touch it.
Yeah.
When the truck picked me up and they drove down the Champs-Élysées, which is the most beautiful avenue of Paris.
Yeah.
They draped from the top of the houses. The houses, some of them were 6 floor high, 6, 7 floor high. They draped the German flag.
Sure.
Which was red background, blood red background, with the black swastika.
Right.
And I remember at that age, I felt so offended. I felt that like they came into my country and raped it. I felt so offended. And then when I spoke to my brothers about it later on when we got together, they said, "Why do you feel so strongly?" I said, "This is my country." At the time, I was probably thinking that I would live there forever,
Yeah.
But I was very offended by that and very hurt. And it means a lot in my story because a lot of students say, have remarks about it. So after being there for 3.5 months, I think it was, suddenly one day I see my oldest brother walking in with a SS man.
Wow.
He walks up straight towards me. He looks around, he walks up straight to me. And I'm supposed to not recognize him. I understood right away that I'm not supposed to know him.
Yeah.
And he speaks in this SS man. He says, I'm looking around. He went like this with his hands behind his back. And he walks around and he says, I'm looking for 2 kids. I want 2 kids to come with me.
So who is he pretending to be at this point?
And
A soldier as well?
yeah.
Huh.
He was wearing his uniform.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
And he came in and he walked straight over to me and he's looking straight at me and I'm supposed to not recognize him and I don't move. And my brother walks around and he says, is there another child? He said, I want 2 children. It was a smart move. Had he just taken me,
Right.
would have been too suspicious. And the SS man says to him, Jawohl, yeah, take the 2 kids.
Yeah.
We are nothing, we're just merchandise.
Right.
And he walks us out to my brother's car. My brother had a driver. And he walks out to the car. He puts me, my brother says, I'll take you. And he takes me because he didn't want that German guy to touch me.
Yeah.
He takes me and he says, you go in the back of the car. In a little rough way, And to the other little girl that we got, also go.
Right, he couldn't show lenience.
He took the 2 children, no preferences, nothing.
Yeah.
And the SS man says, thank you so much for coming. And he salutes him.
Huh.
And we take off. My brother has the driver. He says to him, go on. He says, and he knew exactly where to go, my brother. And we drove. And for maybe 3-4 hours, he didn't even turn around. I think he was in shock that he pulled it off.
Yeah.
And he turned around.
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah, he turned around and he grabs me and he hugs me and he kisses me and he said, I'll take you to safety.
Yeah.
And he said, I asked him if Mommy knew, and I talked to him for all the while that we were driving.
Do you remember what the feeling was when you finally realized you're out of there?
I urinated on myself.
Huh.
I remember that. And I was ashamed that I did.
Sure.
And then, because my mother always taught me how to be clean
Sure.
and all this, at 7, and
I mean, your body's trying to deal with all this stress.
terrible.
Yeah.
And he takes the little girl. The little girl was not even Jewish. She was the daughter of a political prisoner.
Ah.
Because the father was against the Hitler regime, and he was speaking about it, so eventually they shot the poor man, and she was taken away.
Yeah.
The mother later on picked her up. Nicole was with me all the time. Isn't Nicole your girlfriend?
It is my girlfriend's name.
Funny.
That was the other little girl's name?
Yeah.
Wow.
Was
she also from France?
She was from France, and she was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
She was frightened all the time. She was always
Sure.
hugging me and staying close to me. And my brother took us to a convent near Grenoble, which is the central part of France.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to to the convent, and the Mother Superior opened up the door. She was bright, this wide, and just short. But she was full of chocolate, because she ate chocolate all the time. She ate chocolate all the time, but she was such a good human being.
Yeah.
She really saved my sanity at that point, because she took such good care of me. She said she had what you call, in retrospect, she had the goodness in her heart, totally. And that a child was a child, and no matter what, this is my deduction of it, but she was probably thinking, Jewish, not Jewish, whatever they are, this is a child who needs care. And she says to me, you're going to be here safe, and I'll take care of you, but you have to promise me one thing. And I said, what? And she had a big round face, and she said, not to tell anybody you're Jewish. And she had the sensitivity, those little things that I remember. She took me to a passage in the convent, and she says, this way you won't see Jesus. Because she says, I know that you're not allowed to kneel.
Huh.
I wouldn't kneel to save my life, because I was raised that way.
Right.
But she said that. And I said, I was really impressed. I didn't say anything.
She took the extra care.
Extra care. And every day she says, I'll take you to school, and you're not to tell anybody that you're Jewish. I'll take you to school outside of the convent. Now, the little girl, Nicole, stayed in the convent because she was Catholic, so she could go along the program that they had.
Right. Your parents weren't there at this point.
My parents were home.
Right.
And my parents knew where I was through the channels of this wonderful chief of police, I'm sure. Because we never talked about it, but my mother didn't mention it, so it was probably done that way. So I was there I went out to school, and I became the best student because I couldn't talk to anybody. I was afraid to betray myself.
Yeah.
So I became the best student, which was not bad. And then one day the Germans were coming around the properties and the churches and the convents to look for children, mostly for children, because that was our future. And she took me out in the forest, and in her haste, she was afraid to grab something. I was there for 3 days.
Wow.
By myself in the forest. And it was in the middle of the summer, and I ate fruits that were green. So I got sick. I was
just
hungry.
that were growing?
Huh?
That you found in the forest?
Yeah.
Wow.
She forgot to give me food. She just, she...
You just left?
She just left. She said, stay here. I'll come and pick you up. And I was there for 2 days. She didn't come for 2 days. She couldn't come.
Did you at one point think, she's not coming?
No, I didn't think so.
Okay.
I just connected with her very quickly. She was, even though in retrospect, now that you're asking me that, it was pretty smart on my part.
To stay.
To think so.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
I had a lot of time to think, but I only was so young.
Yeah.
Gee, I must pat myself on my back. Now we can laugh about it, but believe me, it was no fun. She used to pick me up from school, and always with a croissant with chocolate. Mm-hmm. She loved chocolate, and I'm not crazy about chocolate.
Okay.
She loved, so she ate a lot of chocolate. And she always told me that I will be okay and that my parents are going to be happy to see me. She didn't know if they were alive or what, but she told me a story. And that I have to be strong, and she encouraged me, and she said, even if you don't like the food, you have to eat the food. And I mean, I never ate pork, and I had to eat pork, That's what they served. And I didn't want to eat it. I felt guilty about it. And then she said, you have to eat it because it's good protein or whatever. She talked me into it. And then one day, she says to me, you have to leave. You can't stay because the Germans are all over the place and they're looking for children.
What does that mean, they're looking for children? Looking for Jewish children?
Yeah.
And how would they have known that you were Jewish in the end?
With the tag that we had to wear.
But you weren't wearing it at that time, no?
No. But
so
they were
there was
looking
always
for
a chance that
they were looking for Jewish children in schools because
they knew you were hiding.
And they knew that Jewish kids were going to school.
Gotcha.
But they had to wear the Star of David, and we were not arrested all the time because when we were walking in the streets, the Germans were not everywhere.
Yeah.
Just in certain places. And then they came, particularly in the subways and where a lot of people were, but they came also in the schools.
Yeah. So she said you had to leave.
We have to. You're gonna have to leave, and somebody will come and pick you up to take you to a family, because there were many people who took in Jewish families at the risk of their own lives.
Yeah.
Some did it out of the goodness of their heart and because it was the right thing to do to save somebody from the SS. But if an SS or if a soldier would come into a home and see Jewish kids, the whole family would be shot.
Right.
So they were taking a big chance. So some people did it because they thought it was the right thing to do, and the other people did it for the money because people paid a lot of money to be in hiding.
Sure.
Diamond rings and whatever they had. There was no price for you to save your life.
Yeah.
It was chaos. It was horrible, and that when you were close to these Germans, that, like I said before, they barked. They sounded to me like they were barking. They spoke so loud, and at home we spoke in a normal tone, which was, I never heard my father even scream at me.
Right.
So it was a total change for me to be adapted to it, and I had no choice to just go with the flow, so to speak.
Yeah. And I don't want to take you too far off the story, but was there ever before, as this was happening, was there ever a thought, okay, we should need to get out of here as a family, or we need to leave our home? Or, because that was always...
You mean in the beginning of
Yeah.
Everything was so fast.
Right.
That we didn't have a chance. Everything went so fast. From one day to another, they invaded Paris. And that was it. They came like... How could I picture it? Masses of people. They came with trucks, unloading trucks. Maybe 50 guys were in there, soldiers.
Yeah. So that's the answer. There just wasn't enough time, and
it
happened within days.
Some people were later on, as I grew up and I came home, I heard stories over the years of this family, that family, friends of ours, who went through. In the very beginning, when the Germans invaded France, in the very beginning, they left.
Yeah.
They left everything, and they saved their lives. my father didn't take that initiative, you know.
I mean, it's such an unexpected and almost unreal thing that I'm sure it wasn't like, okay, it's hard to see the future, you know?
Right, absolutely. They came in like, it was really an invasion.
Right.
They didn't let you know that they're coming, you know.
That would be bad for the invasion.
Right. And for Paris especially. In Paris there were a lot of Jewish people living.
Sure.
But like they came into the east part of France, near Germany, and the Alsace-Lorraine, which is a part that divides France from Germany. People who lived there, they left immediately. They went to Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland opened up their doors. It was okay to come in. And if you had money, you could buy yourself into things like that,
sure.
to be safe. But it was too fast.
Yeah.
My aunt, my mother's sister, for example, was taken with the children to a camp. And through my oldest brother, who knew this one, who knew that one, and the other one, he saved their lives too.
Wow.
But it cost a fortune. And but money had no value, you
right.
know. You save your life.
Yeah.
And so then when I came into that family, now there were families, like I said, who really did it out of the goodness of the heart and knew that it was the right thing to do to save a family's life. I mean, a life you save.
Yeah.
They were not Jewish, and they thought that that was the right thing to do, so they had people. Well, I went into this family who my brother got a hold of, and he didn't have time to examine the people who they were, I suppose. We never spoke about it. They were hard anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Anti-Semite. And they said, you Jews have all the money, and she beat me up for nothing. I mean, I still have, except today, but most of the time, I have a scarf around my neck because I still have pain in my neck. I grew up with the pain in my neck because she used to hit me, and
wow.
You dirty Jew. And one day I said to her that I am not dirty. I wash myself every day, I said, and my mother told me how. You know, as a kid. And,
proud kid, yeah.
You know, and you're a proud kid. And I really did wash myself very well.
Yeah.
But
you took it literally. So,
I did.
Yeah.
I was offended by it as a kid. So the only connection that we had with the outside world was, we didn't have TVs in those days, of course, with the radio. And then one day at lunchtime I heard the Prime Minister of England, Churchill, who hated Hitler with a passion. He actually, from politically speaking, his strength was so, his convictions were so strong that he saved England. He was such a devoted citizen and understood that Hitler was no good.
Yeah.
So I heard him say like this, Mr. Hitler, you know, he was very, how do you say?
Proper with his speech?
Yeah, you know, we hated him.
Yeah.
And he said, how did he, I don't remember exactly the words, the way he said it, but he said that the Germans were, he didn't say the Germans were capitulating. He was saying that the Americans are on the outskirts of Paris to liberate France. And I was crazy.
Yeah.
I right away understood that something good is going to happen. So 2 days later, my parents came with my brother,
Wow.
with my two brothers, to pick me up.
So in total, this was how long after you were picked up by the Germans?
14 months and 13 months, 27 months.
Probably felt like
It felt like
14 years.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
And I asked my brother if the driver could drive down the Champs-Élysées. And we drove down the Champs-Élysées and the flags were gone. Instead, the American and the French flag was... I was crazy about this.
I mean, I can't imagine the joy, the relief.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then we drove up the Champs-Élysées and our home was maybe 15 minutes from the Champs-Élysées. We came home and I looked everywhere for Maurice, for my brother.
Yeah.
I don't remember how they told me that he wasn't coming back. I don't remember.
So they already knew what had happened at that time.
Yeah. And because my brother he was going to school, so he had paper, and he had an envelope, and he threw the envelope through the slot of the train that took him to Auschwitz. It was not a regular train. It was an animal train. Where they bring animals in. There was no seat. There was nothing for them. Everything was calculated to demoralize you.
Right.
Take your spirit away. And he threw the slot. He threw the envelope out, and some good soul put a stamp on it and sent a letter to my mother. And my mother, and the letter that he wrote was, "If I don't come back, tell my brothers to take good care of my sister."
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
You just get chills.
Yeah. So I was looking everywhere for him, and he wasn't there.
I mean, the fact that letter even made it is a miracle.
Some good soul put it. You see, you don't have to do miracles. You just have to be a good human being. You know that this letter was supposed to go someplace, and there was no stamp.
Yeah.
And
someone did one little action.
Somebody did an action that was good and bad. My mother read it her whole life.
Sure.
My mother kept the letter her whole life. When my mother passed away, actually, the letter was in her nightstand.
So she couldn't let go of that.
Yeah, you can imagine the heartache.
Yeah.
So anyway, life started again, but it wasn't the same.
I was gonna say, how do you don't just pick up where you left off? I mean,
my father was one of 6 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Nobody came back. My father was the only one that was saved because of the circumstances. The last Passover that we had tables and chairs everywhere in the house, more than ever before. And I remember that the Seder was so long. I remember that it was so long that I took all my cousins and told them to tie the shoelaces of all the men, underneath the
together.
Yeah, so that they couldn't get out. I remember my father asking, "Who decided to do this?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I did." And he says, "Well, you're going to be punished for that because you interrupted the Seder."
Yeah.
I don't remember how I was punished. It couldn't be very much. That it didn't affect me. But we had so many people for the Seder, And then the next Seder we were 8.
Wow.
It was sad.
Yeah, I'm sure once that came around, that sort of put it in perspective.
Yeah,
How much was
and
lost.
I have images, of how my life began again. And I remember that on the side of the kitchen, there was an extra tray, and that tray was always filled with yahrzeit candles, the memorial candles.
And you're still very young at this point. How did you, I guess, deal with the emotion that came? And I mean, you don't, when you're a kid, you don't really know how to deal with something like, I mean, less than adult, much less than adult.
I went back to school. I found my 3 friends, and I thought anti-Semitism was gone.
Yeah.
And one day, my family is together, and one day I come home from school, and my school was like 5 blocks away, so I walked to school. And sometimes my father or my mother, somebody picked me up on the way back when school was over and took me to the park or something, or did errands. But as a rule, I came home by myself. I liked to walk because my friends were walking, and we were walking. This one went here, this one went there, and I enjoyed walking. So, and then one day it was pouring rain. And my nobody came to pick me up, so I was going by myself. And this guy, I have to tell you that there are houses in Paris that have like you step in first and then is a courtyard.
Gotcha.
So when you step in like this, it's part of the door.
Okay.
It's a heavy, very heavy door. Those heavy doors were from many, many years before, and they kept them that way because it was part of the beauty of the building.
Okay.
So I'm walking, and somebody behind me pushes me into that door. And it is a guy that's about 18 years old. It was written all over his face that he was an anti-Semite. And he pushes me and he says, I thought they killed you. Because they must have heard that I was taken away.
Did you know the guy?
Yeah, from school.
Oh.
Our school was divided in 2. One side was boys and the other side was girls. And during recess, they opened up the doors and the boys and the girls got together and played ball or whatever.
Sure.
We had a recess of, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, whatever. And I saw him all the time. And every time I saw him, he was very nasty. And I didn't like him, but I always said hi to him and that was it.
Sure.
And then when he said that, so my knee opened up because he pushed me. And I came home bleeding. My father says, what happened to you? And I said, I fell on the side of the door, of the trottoir, the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I didn't tell my father what happened.
Why not?
Because I knew that in the dining room, my brother had his belt.
He would have gone
with the
and done
gun sitting there. And my brother said, don't touch this. And I said, I won't. I remember that. But I saw that he didn't use it anymore, right? But he kept the leather belt with the gun,
Yeah.
with the holster. It's a holster, right? A leather holster. And I knew my brother would kill him. I just knew it.
So you
Because
you
he
took
said, when I came back, he said, nobody will ever harm you.
Yeah.
So I never said anything to him. But maybe 40, 50 years later, we were talking about one day, I said, remember when I fell and all this? He says, yeah, why didn't you say? didn't you say anything about it, how you felt? And I said, this boy, he said, why didn't you tell me? I said, because I know what you would have done.
What did he say?
He said, you're right.
That was very, very smart of you.
Well, you grow up fast.
Yeah, I guess so.
In circumstances like this, you grow up fast.
Yeah.
After this, I remember when I came home and I wanted to be held by my father and loved by my mother and all this, I would sometimes say, I don't feel good, I never did that again.
And how, I've known you for a little bit now, and you're a very generally happy and positive person. How did you not let hate consume you? And I feel like you also see the good in people, and I feel like that for someone who's been through a similar thing, that might be very hard.
I see the good in people, and if I see the bad in people, I step away because I can't help them. I'm not here to help them. They're too anchored in their way of thinking. But I love people. I have good friends, and we talk about different things. And I think that people are basically very good. But it's the people that they associate with or what they listen on TV, on radio, and they cannot make up their own mind what is good and what is bad. But I think everybody if they really sit down and think about themselves, they know that they have a bad feeling.
Yeah.
They have to stop that.
So I'm sure you've probably thought about it since then, but did you ever think about how did we get to this point? Because, the worst circumstance came out of it. And so how do you think people get to the point where they let go of all humanity? And
I don't know, but I can't understand that a country like Germany, I remember when my mother was talking about Germany before the war, she was talking with family members or friends who were at the house, how distinguished they were from other countries. They were well behaved. They had, my mother was crazy about behavior and manners.
Yeah.
And the way you behave with a person that you just meet, and to listen to them, and you learn so much, and then you can exchange ideas and stuff. I can't understand that a country that was so educated like Germany did what they did. I can never understand that, because I am not a hero, but nobody could force me to kill somebody. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
Nobody could tell me kill and kill. I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't do it. So I don't understand how one maniac like Hitler was, a sick human being, of course.
Yeah. Well, he was very smart, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think he...
But why did he want to exterminate us? And he put it in their heads.
Yeah.
He had such a power when, first of all, I think that he never spoke, he barked.
Yeah.
He sounded like, so already he terrorized you. Listen to me. And then you were listening. And the whole country, these people, you had doctors, you had philosophers, people who were educated. He convinced them in no time to do what they did. But nobody ever did anything like this. Sometimes I think about it, that the concentration camps, do you know what a concentration camp was? Torture. And in my heart, I think, for my brother who passed away, and I hope that in the gas chamber, when he went into the gas chamber, that he was close enough to the...
So it happened fast.
So he died fast. The closer you were, you died fast, right? But even for me to be in thinking about this, the impact that this left, this horrible situation left. But if I think about it, I would go crazy. I can't let myself do that.
So you've successfully not dwelled on the past.
I don't. I can't. The only thing that I'm doing is talking and telling the story because it has to be told for next generations. For this generation to understand how easy it is to fall into this trap and how strong you have to be. And I realized that I was pretty strong.
Yeah, I would say so. And so we're now in the United States. How did you end up here?
Well, I came to the United States because my oldest brother got married after the war.
How old were you when you came?
I was 20.
Okay.
I wasn't even 20, 19 I think I was. And I came in 1956. And the reason I came was my brother David, the second one, who was gorgeous as can be. Every woman was after him like he was. I remember. Came to the United States because my father, after the war, was found by his sister who lived in New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So was that his only family member that he ended up finding?
Yeah, they lived in New York.
Wow.
They came from Poland to the States, never to France.
Yeah.
And they had their lives here. And
so even before the war, they were...
Yeah, before the war.
Gotcha.
And they were quite well-to-do because they had a factory of something. So after the war, when the war after the war ended, the sister made researches who was alive and found my father.
Wow.
And got in touch with my father and asked him to come to America. So he came to New York. And the day that my father went to New York, I was sick. I got sick with scarlet fever.
Mm.
My father said, she doesn't want me to leave. And I said, no, I'm itching everywhere. And I said, Papa, I remember, I was always teasing my father. I said, Papa, you'll be sorry to see me without the spots. Because, I was a kid. I was spoiled rotten. I mean, I never left my brothers alone. I was always with them, especially with my two oldest brothers. What did you do? Where are you going?
Was that the same relationship you had with them before the war?
Always.
Yeah.
My middle brother said to me one day, he said, I was hanging on to him, and he says to me like this, go in the dining room and see fast if I'm there. And I started to run towards the dining room. I realized, how can I be in the dining room and there? To say, just I would hang on to my brothers. I loved them so much. I wanted to know everything. And they took me many places where a kid doesn't go, usually. If they had a luncheon with a friend, they would take me with them.
Well, you weren't really a kid anymore at that point.
Yeah, right. That's true. But what happened, so David, so my father came to America for, I think, 2 or 3 months. then came back to Paris. Then David wanted to come to the United States, and my aunt made the papers for him to come, and he came because he was a fabulous dancer.
Okay.
He would dance like Gene Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
We had a piano at home, and he danced on top of the piano, and my father was running after him. I'm going to hit you. He never touched him. And he came to Los Angeles, to New York, stayed in New York for a while, and then came to Los Angeles because he wanted to go to Hollywood and become an actor.
Oh, wow.
So he stood in line for many times, and nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. So he made his life here for quite a few years. He was here, I think, 11 to 12 years. And every other year he came to Paris to visit with the family. And that year I was going to go into college, and he said he was crazy about me, my little sister. And I was not a little, I was a young woman already. My little sister, I want to take you to Hollywood. And my father agreed to let me go.
Wow.
So I came and I lived with him for a few months. Oh, that was the best time ever. He showed me everything, and
yep.
But he was very strict. I was dating, and he took the driver's license of the guy before I went out.
I like that.
Yeah, he wanted to, because he said to me, if something happens to you, Papa will kill me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I stayed here for a while, and actually I never went back. I stayed here, and I met Kirk's father.
How?
He came in to neighbors who were friends of my brother, and my brother had then a party in his house, and he invited, said, if you have time, you're welcome to come. And he was a great dancer, and I love dancing. So from one thing to another, he was a yeshiva boy.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't religious here. He was working.
Gotcha.
And fell in love, and that was that.
Came Kirk.
Then came Kirk. And then after a few years it didn't work out, so then I remarried with another man who became Kirk's stepdad, but they had a very good relationship, and I was happy that he was really a devoted son to him. Until the end, Kirk was with him, spent a lot of time in the hospital with him, and he said to him, Kirk, you have to go home to your family. And he said, no, Dad, this is my place to be here with you. He was a very devoted son to him.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how has your previous experiences affected your priorities in your life? What do you see as what's important?
Well, the most important thing always was in my life prior to the war, well, maybe not prior to the war because I was a child, but my priorities is the behavior of people, how they are to each other, and I think that if the people don't start to realize that you have to be kinder than you are, and look around and help each other, and it would be a much better world.
I agree.
And understanding that not everybody thinks like you do, and to give them a chance to be themselves.
So something I've started to understand, because I've noticed that even with my girlfriend, sometimes we have differing opinions.
Of course.
Which is a good thing.
Of course.
But a lot of times I would go straight to trying to either change her opinion or have her see it the way I did. But that's not what I actually would be good for us or what I want. So I sort of kind of realized that it's better to understand someone before you try to change them.
Absolutely, but if it is a political thing, then you might as well give up.
Yeah, yes and no. I think a little more understanding from everyone, or trying to understand the other side.
Give me an example for you that you have with her.
That's a good question. An example I have with her.
Also, you're an American.
Yeah, so that is different.
That is different.
She's Israeli. Well, I can't think of.
Don't you remember one of the things?
I have a terrible, when it comes to things we've talked about, like specifics, I have a terrible memory. But it doesn't have to be something big. Like even if she has maybe a certain friend that from the outside I see maybe
is not the right person.
Right, maybe isn't the best influence, but they have a lot of history. And immediately I go and try to say, why would you even spend time with, like, I don't consider the fact that maybe she's built memories and built a connection with this person. So instead of trying to understand, okay, maybe where she's coming from and what's holding her to that, I would say.
You jump to conclusions.
Right.
Can't do that, though.
It's
not easy.
It's not.
It's not easy because what you feel is the right thing, because you are who you are, you feel the right thing. And for Nicole, it isn't, because she has a history with that person. So if that person, if you don't like her, I would suggest you just don't even talk about it and let Nicole do whatever she has been doing up to now.
Yeah, I'll give you actually a better example, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for sharing this. But
no.
So I was in the car the other day with my brother Chad, and he's been vaping for a while, and I don't think it's the best thing. And previously, and maybe he'll look back on this conversation, because I didn't tell him that this is how I thought of it, but maybe he'll look back on the conversation like, oh, that was maybe better how you asked it. So we were in the car going to the gym, and he vapes in the car, and I can smell it, and immediately I'm like, I want to yell at him and say, why are you trying to kill yourself? Like, don't do this to yourself. And I knew, I thought about it right before I said it, and I thought, all we're going to do is get into an argument if I just yell at him and make him try to feel bad. So I asked him, well, what do you think about vaping? And from there, it went into, well, I actually don't want to vape. I think it will kill me, or it will be bad.
He said that.
Yeah, he said that, which kind of blew my mind. And then we got into a productive conversation after that of, okay, well, where's the gap right now between you stopping and you knowing that it's bad for you? And so we started to talk about how we can make that better and how we can improve that, versus what would have happened would have just been him like, leave me alone, like, don't bother me.
But you didn't say that.
No, but because I didn't yell at him. I didn't say, don't do this or what. I didn't tell him. I asked him.
Well, he does it because it makes him feel better.
Maybe.
About himself.
Maybe.
Yeah, because he gets into another stage.
Stage? What do you mean stage?
Level of conversation of what's happening around.
You're saying for the that's why the conversation went better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So that was kind of my example of that. But that's something I've been starting to understand, that versus you're not going to get anywhere if you just tell someone how you think, because they have different experiences, different life. So I wanted to sort of close it a little bit with, we sort of touched on it also, that you speak weekly to all different types of people about your story, and it's not an easy thing to talk about.
No, it's not. But I tell you what, the reason that it becomes easier for me is that I can see that from the years that I've been doing this, which is about, I think, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
the impact that I make on the people,
Really?
on the students. I get packages sent through the museums of the school because nobody gets my address. You know, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We live in a crazy world. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So, where the kids said, even yesterday I got a little package from kids who said that they will never forget me and that it was so nice for me to talk to them on Zoom. I did that. That one came from up north on Zoom. So you don't see the kids, but they see you.
Yeah.
And they lie and they're like, I like your eyes. I like, you know how kids do. Anyway, they'll be wonderful.
So it makes it all worth it when you get that.
Yeah, and I will never forget you. And I will also, what they say is, if they're older people, older kids like 18 years old, they say your advice is sitting on my desk. That's good.
Yeah.
When they say that. And my advice is also always respect the other person and they will respect you.
Yeah, and that's kind of leading to my final question, which would be, what advice would you give to the future generation, and what do you hope they get from gain from your story or hear and remember?
Well, not to fall asleep, but to be awake of what's going on.
Yes.
To be awake and really.
But it's not just awake, like, you can be going through day to day, but I guess it's more about asking questions and.
Yes, asking questions, and if you see something that you don't like, you have to speak up. You have to speak up because otherwise later on you cannot say, why is this happening? I didn't do anything and I saw that it was there and I didn't do anything, so I am as guilty as the predator.
Yeah, regrets live in the past.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. What happened to me when I was 30 years old in this country. I was wearing a high heel.
Yeah.
And I walked in, I was going to cross the street, and my heel broke. I must have touched something. And my heel broke, and I fell. I fell with my 2 feet in the street.
Yeah.
And here comes the bus. And I can't get up. And people are around, and I said, can you please help me to get up? Nobody moves. An old man with a stick dropped the stick and picked me up out of the thing. And I asked this man, I said, why did nobody... I asked all the people around me that were waiting for the bus. I said, why didn't anybody help me? And his response was, because they were afraid to be sued.
That's crazy.
I believe that.
Yeah, but so
where is humanity?
Right, so there's still a choice, and it's about not being so worried about the repercussions and more focused on the right thing.
Right.
Amazing. So something I started doing last time with Darrell, I interviewed him this past weekend, was I'll say words, and then I'll give you a couple words.
Yeah.
And it's sort of an association thing. So you'll say, and you'll give me a 1-word to couple word response.
You're testing me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna give you a big word, and you're gonna tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
So the first one would be family.
Love and guidance.
War.
Destructive.
Career.
Important.
Mindset.
What do you mean by mindset? You have an opinion?
Sure.
That's what you mean?
Like attitude, per se. I guess attitude's a better word.
To be corrected.
Okay. Friends.
Very important.
The past.
Teaches the future.
The future.
Has to look in the past.
And then the last one would be time.
Too short. Not enough.
Perfect. Amazing. So the way we kind of close it out here, so you do these speeches for people. How do you usually get reached out to for speeches?
Oh, the museums, the two
Gotcha.
museums, the Museum of the Holocaust and the Museum of Tolerance, which is the Wiesenthal Center.
Gotcha. So if someone wanted you to speak somewhere.
Yeah, and then it snowballs.
Gotcha. So
But
they
I
just
go-
ask for
and-
Michelle Rodri.
And the schools.
Gotcha.
I went to one school, and then the other schools, one teacher tells the other one, we have
Yeah.
that program and so forth. Sometimes they take me 2-3 times in the same school.
I'm sure.
I said, you didn't understand the first time.
Not enough people got the message.
Yeah, they didn't get the message. But I feel that it's important.
Absolutely.
The story must be told because it's true, and it's unfortunately the world hasn't learned anything from the last war.
Do you think, I mean, I don't know how much more it would take for the understanding to come? Or do you think just too much time has passed?
No, it's never too late. I don't believe that. It's never too late to have people, they're stuck. So they got to be moved,
Yeah.
I think that people are very selfish.
By nature, for sure.
Yeah. It's me, and preserve me.
Yeah.
And help me. And, I have a picture in my head that comes time to time.
Yeah.
It is written that God will never do what he did with Noah's ark.
Right.
He promised. But I see God watching the world. I really see it in my mind's eye. I see it. He's watching the world and he's saying, they didn't understand what I said. They didn't believe. Should I do it again? And recreate a new world? Because if the world doesn't change, it's going to become a jungle. People have no respect for each other.
Yeah.
And this is where it starts. I forgot to tell you in my story that when I was finally liberated, right?
Yeah.
And we drove back, and I said to my brother, can we drive on the Champs-Élysées?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the American and French flag next to it. I forgot to tell you that the tanks were rolling down that day, the American tanks.
Right.
And I jumped on one of the tanks because
No way.
they were so handsome.
Oh, yeah.
I felt so good with them.
Yeah.
And they were picking me up, and I was just a kid. They were picking me up and giving me juicy fruit gum.
No way.
And when I tell the story, I get packages of juicy fruit gum from the students.
Yeah.
But now I tell them not to because the taste is not the same.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But are you going to do the whole pod, everything? You don't cut anything out?
Unless you tell me to.
No, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it. It's just a conversation, and people can choose to be there for the whole thing, part of it. And I'll hopefully, if I take the time, I'll break it up and I'll label, okay, this half is what this subject is about, and so people can go see what they want to see. And thank you so much for being here. It was I didn't know a lot of these things, and I've known you for a little while, so I was really looking forward to this. You can ask my parents. I've been telling them that about this, and very excited. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're,
And,
whether you like it or not, you're part of my family.
I guess so. I like it though, so that's good. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm hopefully you guys took something positive away from this and enjoyed it as much as I did. And yeah, you guys can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and we're uploading every Friday. And I look forward to the next one. So stay delusional, because success comes when you least expect it.
Amen to that.